welcome to another episode of Natural Edge. I'm your host, Sean Sully Sullivan, and I am here with the intoxicating Aubrey Warwick and the hot Dr. Jody Shackley Wright, because she's got my hot. All right, what are we talking about this episode? We're going to pull back into Yorton Cup number 2. And I also want to start talking about some of the male competitors that are going to be there this year that we're going to be keeping an eye on. When we start talking about our events, we're going to Hawaii and talk about the Kona Classic and Dayton, Ohio, a town very near and dear to me, having been from Ohio and being raised in Columbus, Ohio, and from Dayton. And of course, Mira, who we talked about last episode with a show that she had another show the week after on the 19th. In Dayton, Ohio, the Dayton Natural. A couple athletes to spotlight, and the all-important question that came to me at the Nashville show from a bikini competitor. Should bikini and figure competitors train their chest? Let's talk about it. So we're going to start with Yorton Cup number 2. So Yorton Cup number 2 was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we went from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, all the way up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is because Matt initially felt that the Yorton Cup should move all around. It shouldn't be in the same location all the time, like it is now, and like a lot of marquee events are. And so he was trying different areas. Also because along with the Massachusetts, New England area, the Virginia area, and then Arizona, New Mexico, Pittsburgh was our biggest base of competitors. It was kind of like OCB was kind of limited into those areas. We weren't really expanding at that point like we are now. We were just happy and content being a cool little federation and bringing on really cool people. But we had 3 shows in Pennsylvania, so he thought it was a really cool idea to go up to Pittsburgh. It was also one of my first times since I was a boy going to Pittsburgh, and I realized how much I love Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a really cool place to go. I love the vibe there. And growing up a Steelers fan, it was just a really, really cool experience for me to be up there at that show. Some unique things about this show, we had bumped up to 78 competitors. So back up to where we were the year before the hurricane. Again, we only had the 3. We had women's bodybuilding, figure, and men's bodybuilding. But Matt decided to try something a little bit different. In the early years of OCB, we were either going by height or weight for men's bodybuilding. Not so much for the women's categories, but for men's bodybuilding. And we decided to instill weight classes. So we ended up with 5 weight classes. We had the bantamweight, lightweight, middleweight, light heavy, and heavy. So there were 5 weight classes. Each class was filled to capacity with competitors. Then we also had bumped up to doing a short, medium, and a tall for figure. And then we had a short, medium, and a tall for women's bodybuilding. So the open athletes really, really brought it. It was also before we started our first pro year. So there was no pro competition this year either. That started a couple of years after that. But some standouts for this show, the biggest standout for me was a competitor by the name of Adam Schwaver, who was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. And going in, I knew nothing about him. I knew a lot of the other bodybuilders that were competing. There was Larry Wizarak, who I had competed with multiple times. Larry was a lightweight competitor, absolutely ripped, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful symmetry. Luther Bradford, who had come up from Virginia, another amazing competitor, heavyweight, absolutely outstanding. Edward Bednar, also just really, really shredded. These talented people that we knew around the OCB. Nobody knew anything about Adam. And then it was another one of those dominating feats where the competitor walks on stage and you're just like, where have you been all my life? Now, the interesting thing about Adam is he comes in, he wins the Yorton Cup. I'm trying to remember, if memory serves me, it was like his 2nd or 3rd show. He had won, and then I never saw him again. I never saw him around the scene. Adam, if you are out there and you're still competing, you're still following bodybuilding and you happen to catch this, or if somebody on here knows Adam, please have him reach out to me because I want to catch up with him and see how he's doing. Maybe we can bring him back and feature him in a spotlight or do an interview with him. But he was an incredible competitor. And I have little to no information on him, and he just beat a lot of really, really talented competitors. He was a middleweight competitor. And the thing I remember most about his physique is that if you just looked at his physique, you would have thought he was a heavyweight. He was as shredded as a bantamweight, and he was as big as a heavyweight in a middleweight frame. So I think that he could give some modern day competition a run for his money. So Adam, You made a mark on me. In figure, it was Monica Rogers in the figure. Monica was a rising star in the OCB and a lot of other federations. She was, again, a total package. And she actually beat Katrina Roundtree, the previous year's champion, and came out the winner of that year's figure competition. It was a really, really great figure lineup. There were 26 competitors in the open figure competition. So the figure competitors really brought it that year. And finally, hats off to the women bodybuilders because it was pre-women's physique. But the one thing that Matt noticed with the women's bodybuilders that were coming into the OCB, especially the natural looking bodybuilders, is they always maintained that femininity, that balance. They weren't overdoing their physique. And even though they were doing the male poses, this is before we went to women's physique with the more feminized posing, they were still doing a lot of on their posing routines, a lot of really interesting poses. And I was sitting there as the head judge, and Matt was sitting next to me, judging and doing the photography. And there was a competitor that came out, Jamie McLaughlin. And she was the first person I ever saw do the ballerina pose. She did a side chest, and she went out, she did the ballerina pose, and she kind of tilted it in. And Matt said, if I ever change the criteria for OCB for women's bodybuilding, that is the new side chest. And that is now the standard pose for women's physique, which brings me to Jamie. Jamie won the bodybuilding that year. Like I said, there were 20 women's bodybuilders broken into 3 height classes, short, medium, and tall. Lisa Cooney from Pittsburgh area was a big asset to the OCB, somebody who was always there to help us, great competitor. She was a fixture at every Pennsylvania show for more than a decade. Lisa, if you're out there, make a comeback, girl, because we miss you. Outstanding competitor. She won the Masters 45 plus, and she was runner up to Jamie. But yeah, Jamie was just an incredible bodybuilder. One thing I have to say about Yorton Cup champions in bodybuilding and in women's physique, it's always brought some of the best. I mean, there have been a lot of great natural competitors that are bodybuilders and women's physique competitors, but I really think that as good as our other champions have been in other categories, most consistently in the Yorton Cup has been the women's bodybuilding and now women's physique champions. They have always just been like industry standard top tier. So that was the Yorton Cup 2, November 4th, 2006 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And you were on such a roll. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you said something throughout that spiel while Matt was judging and doing photography. I had forgotten about that. He was like doing double duty at some of those shows.
Wow.
And he was really good at it.
He was an incredibly good photographer. And he had just an incredible talent. Yeah.
No doubt.
And having access to his photo database now is like really cool to see some of his, like dramatic shots. But yeah, sitting there when he was doing that double duty and he saw Jamie hit that, he went, if I ever change the standards it came out more like, if I ever change the standards for women's bodybuilding, that's the new side chest.
He meant when. He totally did.
Yeah. I think the wheels started turning in his head then.
Yeah.
And he knew he was going to do it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Hey, and let's start talking about what's going to be happening at this year's Yorton Cup, the 20th anniversary. I want to concentrate some on the men's bodybuilding competition because we have a repeat showdown. So we have a 4-time Yorton Cup champion in Magnum coming in to try to win number 5. Nobody realizes is that in the last almost half decade, only one person has ever beaten Magnum in a bodybuilding competition and in the Yorton Cup, and that's Levi Berg. Levi is making his comeback now. So, Jody, were you there when Levi won a couple of years ago?
Was there, and it was a pretty incredible moment. I mean, if you ask my perspective, it was so close. And I do remember having this moment in my mind, like, oh my goodness, I'm glad I'm not sitting at the judges table right now because that was a matchup. And I expect that this year will be no different. Can't wait.
Yeah, Jody, you're spot on. Their history goes back even before that. So they competed 3 years in a row. So very, very, very close runner-up to Magnum. And then he beat Magnum. Magnum was a very, very close runner-up to Levi. And then the tables turned again. And last year he had to sit out due to an injury. This year, there's going to be a lot to talk about going in with those competitors. And Aubrey, I know that you happen to be at the last two Yorton Cups also competing and seeing Magnum win back to back. But do you remember, did you have a chance to see him in the bodybuilding several years ago when he flipped the tables on Levi? I know you were competing that year, but that was
No, I wasn't. What year was that, Sully?
so that would have been two that Magnum won the
Okay.
cup back.
Right.
And that was your first
That he won the
year.
cup back. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was at that York.
Yeah, that was your first year because I remember you were the runner-up in your class that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
that was
what
your
a
first year.
what a great message for competitors now. I can't tell you how many times in judges' feedback where I'm like, any given Sunday. And
Yeah.
this year, like,
Yeah.
I think it literally is on a Sunday. It's going to be any given Sunday.
Well, you're right. Any given Sunday, and it is going to be on a Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that is really notable about those two champions is that when Levi had beaten Magnum, the first person that he went right out and he was gracious and congratulatory and was appreciative for what Levi did. And then when it happened, the opposite, the same thing. So it's two competitors who have the greatest amount of mutual respect from each other. Now, those are just two competitors that are coming. There's a couple other competitors that are entered that kind of want to keep it under the wire that are, I don't even want to call them wild cards because they're so darn good. It's really, really going to make for a great Yorton Cup. But then we also have other stalwarts because David Tripp, who was here last year, he is almost 60 years old, and he brought the package that he brought last year was absolutely amazing. He got to compete last year with his son, Aiden, who was 19. So he had a 19-year-old and a mid-50-year-old competitor, father and son at the same time. Now, Aiden's taking a year off to put on a little bit more mass. But now you have David coming back. I know that we also have one of my absolute favorite competitors who just ages like fine wine, and that was last year's runner-up, Marshall Johnson. So the Marshall is going to be back in town. But it's just the top three from last year is returning, and then new competitors coming in, and you never know what's going to happen with the competitors that were here last year that were on the cusp in the bodybuilding. Any one of them could just have turned the corner, and it's just going to be an embarrassment of riches. And right now the numbers are skewing that the bodybuilding is going to be a bigger class this coming up year than it was last year. So the way that the numbers are rolling in last year, I think we had 22 pro bodybuilders. It looks like we're going to be we might end up with 4 classes of pro bodybuilders, which would be a first for us in a long, long time. So an A, B, a C, and a D class. So imagine that overall pose down.
Right.
Jamel Williams, 2-time Yorton Cup champion. As I sit here and prepare for the Yorton Cup 2025, arguably the biggest, baddest, and the best natural championship there is, I'd be a liar if I sit here and told you last year didn't change me. It sparked a fire in me. Maybe that fire was burning out, and that's what I needed to reignite it. But here we are, 8 to 9 weeks out. Man, I get chill bumps just thinking about it. We've been putting in the work day by day, rep by rep, show by show. When I stepped off stage last September, I began working for this September. Chasing my 3rd Yorton Cup, and I feel it. I feel it in reach. So it's up to me to come in undeniable. Don't leave nothing up for interpretation. Don't leave it up to the judges. Come in undeniable. That's all you can do. That's all I'm going to do. Some people give a little. Some people give a lot. I give everything. I know nobody's outworking me, man. I live for this. You know, people get into the sport to be seen, to get IG followers, or whatever. No, I live for this. This is a lifestyle. Did I let myself down in September? No. But I let all the people that was supporting me and rooting for me down for sure. So this run is for them this year. I'm doing it for them. It's gonna be great, man. It's gonna be great. I see you guys in September.
And I said it, pose down. It's time for pose down. So, like I said, we had 4 outstanding shows coming up. And Jody, who did you cover?
Yes, I covered the OCB Kakoa Classic in Oahu, Hawaii. Talk about a destination show. And that was promoted by Michael Umayam. Hats off to him for having 35 competitors. Now, a lot of our OCB shows are well over 100, but to pull that off on an island, that is actually the largest natural show outside of the contiguous United States. So props to Michael for pulling that off and hosting a wonderful event.
Next, we want to show the highlight reel from Anna Korsmeyer's show in Dayton, Ohio. It was the OCB Dayton Natural, where she had over 70 competitors.
right, now let's spotlight some athletes. So we're going to go for some shows to some athletes. So I'm going to start this one off with an athlete that is near and dear to my heart because she is from Massachusetts, earned her pro card, and just competed in a pro show. So 2 shows. Her name is Kaylee Valley, and she just did the Hall of Fame, and she was the runner-up in her pro bikini class. Now, I want to put something in perspective. Runner-up, I had 17 pro bikinis. 5 of those pro bikini competitors had competed in the Yorton Cup. 2 had won championships. So she was in a stellar lineup, and this was her second show. So her first show was last year in Massachusetts. It was the Eastern America, and she won the debut and the open and got her pro card. And now she jumps in, and she is our champion. So she's kind of deciding what she's going to do for her next show. I'm trying to encourage her to do the Yorton Cup. So, Kaylee, I think you should be in the Yorton Cup. You have left your mark. But if not, she's going to wait till 2026. She's looking at the Colorado show and, of course, everybody's favorite female show that is not called Yorton Cup, The Conqueror, both here at one of those 2 shows. So she's also from the great state of Maine, and just a really incredible competitor, fun competitor to be around, an infectious attitude backstage. She's just really a crowd pleaser. So, Kaylee, you are just starting show 2 and top 2 in the pros and bringing it in the overall. And she pushed those girls hard in the overall.
Fantastic. Well, I am going to spotlight a competitor who has been in it alongside me on stage for years. She and I have shared the stage a number of times. Her name is Lori Foote. She is an OCB figure pro. She's done multiple shows, multiple Yortons. The show that stands out to me is when we had 12 of us in our class and they had us on stage for 11 minutes. And if I haven't said it before, I felt like that final turn was going to be the one that I went down. I tell you, she holds her own on stage and off stage too. I'll get to that. She placed 3rd in her class at the 2024 Conquer. She's a pro then. And then she's also placed in the top 3 in her class at Yorton. So when we talk about quads are absolutely her standout feature, like all 4, check, 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 and check. And what I especially appreciate about her is her quiet consistency. You don't see a whole lot of splash posts from Lori off stage and working behind the scenes, but trust me when I tell you she is constantly committed. I've worked shows with her as well. She's an absolute gem and just really always has this calm presence. So all qualities we love to highlight. We see you, Lori, and we like what we see. Keep crushing it.
That's awesome. All right. I need to definitely follow her for some quad inspiration. I'm pretty stoked about that. So I'd like to feature someone who actually inspired me to compete with the OCB. And she doesn't know this. Okay. Her name is Teresa Johnson. I know you guys know her, but I got to know her a little bit just through Instagram. I'm going to be real with you. I was attracted to her Instagram because I was like, what? She has naturally curly hair like me. All right, what? Though I was curious about this woman, but more than that, honestly, I loved her energy so I kind of followed her from afar and got into competing, got my pro card, got to meet her at the 2023 Yorton Cup and introduced myself, of course. And this is a great little story about Teresa, if you don't know her. She started competing in 2016 when she turned 40, and she won her pro card in Open and in Masters. It is what is now the OCB Apex. Back then it was the Battle for the Tidewater. And she turned 50 recently. She's a full-time physical therapy assistant in skilled nursing. And I thought this was pretty cool. She has 2 daughters, and her first client was her one daughter who actually she got to also win her pro card in debut. I thought that was pretty cool. Teresa is a twin. She also has another daughter with cerebral palsy. She says that she is a mommy's girl. And I can see through her posts what an amazing human being she is. So on and off stage. The cool thing to note about Teresa, though, she took about 2 years off. And guess what? She's coming back. So she's super excited to see what this break has done for her. And Teresa, I hope that we get a chance to meet again in person.
And one of my favorites too, great competitor. And she was missed last year. I'm glad she's coming back. And
Great to
50?
hear.
Really? I would have pegged
I,
it for her
I,
30.
either when I
Mhm.
learned that, I remember one of her posts, I was like, that is impossible. Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, she, I forgot to mention, she was the second runner up at the Yorton 2 times, and she has 10 first place wins. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, an incredible competitor. And geez, welcome back. And thank you for coming to the 20th anniversary. I can't wait to see you back on stage, T.
So cool.
Same.
Hey, and speaking of pro tips, our next feature, it actually comes from a bikini competitor. When I was at the Nashville show, one of the bikini competitors had come up to me and said, hey, for pro tips, can you ask the pros, because you have a bikini and a figure champion on there, do they train their chests? So the question is, should a bikini and figure competitor train chest?
You want me to go first?
You're the
Please.
bikini.
You know, here's the deal. So, of course, we got to say it depends. Okay. And I'm going to be pretty open about this. Like, if you have augmented breast, maybe that is not necessarily something that you want / to do based on, you know, your ability to do so. I don't know. I don't. So for me, I know that training chest has been helpful in terms of developing my anterior delts. I like to see my upper pecs a little bit. I also think that depending on what is lacking in your physique, I think that a good coach is going to know that, being like your body architect. So my answer is it really just depends on where you are with your physique.
That's a great answer. And I think we all also have to look at the overall silhouette. So I completely agree with the it depends answer for bikini. For figure, I'm going to say it depends more, because we really are going for the X frame. But I'm going to say it for a different reason. There's multiple reasons why I think it's a yes. But I have a personal experience that really taught me to get my booty in the gym and train in chest more, because I had fallen off track with that. I was so focused on growing my back. And I thought, my chest is fine. I'm not judged on it anyway. Well, COVID hit and my gym closed, and we lived in a townhouse. We did not have room for equipment in our townhouse. So I had the brilliant idea of doing an advanced push-up challenge, and ended up, because I was going so hard, so fast out of the gate, I ended up with a shoulder injury when I was trying to do this push-up challenge. So it was a great experience in just reminding, we're talking complete physique, and that goes with injury prevention. So when you're not training, or you're detraining, or you're ignoring certain muscle groups, remember that they all play together. They all play together, and you want them all to play nicely. And when one is weaker, you do stand a chance of getting an injury. So that's
that's so true.
my
And that's exactly where I was going to go.
Yeah.
First and foremost, muscle imbalances. The one thing you can never do is not train an antagonistic muscle group. Think if you only train quads and not training hamstrings, or if you only train biceps without training triceps, it creates muscle imbalances. Because remember, the body is constructed, think of it as a variety of levers and cables trying to do things. So there's the injury prevention part of it. But also, let's look at the overall physique part of it. People think that training chest is only hitting the pec major and the pec minor, and it's only going to make the chest bigger. This is not the case. When you train chest, you have so much more activation of the shoulders. Also, the way that the pec major and pec minor fold in, you're getting some serratus and some rib cage work in here. So you're also kind of like working in through here. Your core muscles, to a lesser extent, also get trained with a lot of chest work. The front delts, where they tie in to where the chest area comes in, very important in figure and very important in bikini, because one of the things we look for in a bikini competitor is a sign of muscle tone. So we should see some deltoid development. If you're just doing side laterals and lateral movements, then you're going to be missing in on some of that tie-in portion. And so just for overall injury prevention and just for an overall look. Also, bikini competitors and figure competitors, I know you're nervous about training chest because you think it's going to masculinize yourself and you're going to end up with a big chest. You also, just like a male, have a pec major and a pec minor that kind of lay over each other. However, the insertion points, the layover points, the amount of muscle density in there, and usually the muscle fiber dispositions are such that you're not going to develop an Arnold Schwarzenegger chest that's going to throw off the way that your own natural chest, or if you have implants, the way that they're going to look. Not for the average chest training. To really, really do some damage in there to make some things look screwy, you really have to prioritize chest. But by throwing in a chest workout per week, you're going to overall enhance the look of your bikini physique, as well as prevent any muscle imbalances that are going to occur, particularly since bikini competitors and especially figure competitors are pounding the crap out of your back. Again, dual tension. So you don't want to ever end up increasing injury because you're training other muscle groups and you just go to, push something away from you, and the next thing you know, you have a pec tear. So yeah, I highly recommend maintaining chest work to some degree. Bikini, figure, doesn't matter where it's at. Just like I tell, male competitors, I don't train glutes. Do you squat? Do you do lunges? Do you do deadlift? Well, then you're training your glutes. So same thing. Do some work for your chest. So there you have it from the pros. 3 green lights. You should probably do some chest work. And that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. Hey, this is our wrap-up episode. This is the last chance that you have to get a listener before next episode. We announce who is going to be getting the entry fees. If you're a brand new listener and you were brought here from somebody who is already a listener, make sure you go into the comments section at blah, 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 sent me, bang. And then we can tally those up, or we can get that out. And you know something? We like doing our contest for our listeners so much. Stay tuned. We have another one coming. But in closing, I want to say, train hard, be safe, stay natural. See you next time.